So you're building Symbiotic to be in the flow, right? So it's happening as you're writing code. Was there a specific moment at maybe a previous company or at some given time where you looked at the industry and said, man, this current approach is broken and I have to build the fix myself?
Yeah, there was a factor of things, I guess. There was personal experience of myself, but my co-founder as well has been in code security for a while, in application security for a while. So this is like the founding thesis, I guess, of Symbiotic is how do we stop being a pain in the neck for developers because we ask them to do something and they have no personal interest in doing it because they're not measured on security and on the contrary on velocity. And two, how do we jump into that AI wave to create something that is absolutely new in terms of even philosophy of how we do security in that world?
So I guess your take is incorporate this in the everyday flow that's already happening, which involves kind of a change in a process a little bit. But it sounds like your tool makes that change really easy.
Yeah, it's very seamless for developers because everything we do it at the time when they need it and only at that time. It's really when I'm coding, when I'm creating something, when my AI is writing code for me that I get what I need for security, which means it's small bites, you
Yeah.
know? Like if I'm, let's say one part of the solution, for example, is training
Mm.
is a pain for developers because it's very interruptive, right? Training them on something they don't care about in a way that's very interruptive and lowers their velocity. How
Yeah.
can they like
Yeah.
that? So the way we typically do it so that we make it not a pain for them is to say, well, you are intent on fixing that vulnerability because we made you aware that it's like policy breaching, whatever, right? So now you're gonna get a not an afternoon of training, you're gonna get 2 minutes of code-based training right there in your IDE about that problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
We're not trying to make you learn cybersecurity as a practice. That would be a huge endeavor you don't care about. We're trying to help you solve a problem you have now,
Yeah.
right? So it's a lot about being centered around what the developer needs rather than what the security team needs and tries to enforce onto the developers.
Yeah. What would you say is the hardest part of the story to tell right now? Is it getting developers to care, or is it getting them to realize you're different from maybe the 50 other tools that they see out there?
It's probably the latter, right? I think because if you look superficially, at the end of the day, we're trying to solve for the same problem, which is, we're trying to do something so that your code is not a liability to you,
Mm.
right? And to your company. But the way we do it is way more effective, cost efficient, but that requires explanations. You know what I mean? You need to get into the substance and be able to have that opportunity to spend at least 10, 15 minutes with someone to get into, hey, here's what we have that is so different. And I guess that's the magic of a good messaging and good positioning. When people can immediately like somewhat like put you in a space of their brain that is clearly labeled as, hey, they are doing this, and that box is different from the incumbents,
Yeah.
right? And so our positioning is AI heavy, not as, hey, we're using AI to solve your problems, which is true by the way, but we are solving your AI problems. And that kind of sets us apart when we discuss with customers, and that translates into, like, that's a claim that translates into a lot of product features and way we do things very differently compared to our competition.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you guys hitting kind of taking a bottom up approach? So enticing the developers and then kind of getting them to convince, hey, we need to pay for this tool? Or is it kind of more top down or a blend of the two?
It's hard to have truly a product-led growth motion at our stage where the user might be the developer, but the payer will be the security people, right?
Yeah.
So that transition from I'm a free user to I'm a paid user is not that smooth.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're starting top down.
So right now, are you still the primary person closing the big deals?
I'm the account executive. We have another account executive in Europe, but our first market is here in the
Yeah,
US and I'd say North America in general.
got it. So at what point do you worry that, you selling becomes the bottleneck or a company's speed? Yeah.
So hopefully we won't get there. I think the point in time when I'm not going to be the primary account executive is not because of bandwidth. I think that's when I will have a very high certainty about a playbook, a
Mhm.
target type, a persona, a way of doing things, a messaging, etc. that I think, okay, this is repeatable. And now I can stack resources doing the exact same thing and it's going to scale, right? I'm at the point in time where we are very successful, but it's still a lot of me, a lot of my passion, a lot of my explanations in there. And we definitely need to transition to something that is stackable.
You're still in the kind of ad hoc stage, right? Well, I mean, it's an exciting place to be of you're kind of in that discovery phase a little bit, right? Of like, okay, what resonates with who and who do we want more of? And how can I just turn that into something I can just rubber stamp and go hire however many people I need to
Exactly.
hire?
We are at the stage where we've had enough engagement and customer interactions and paid customers that we know what works. Now we need to turn that into a process on top of doing all the operational thing, on top of doing all the strategy thing. So, some focus, but we are hiring. We have a bunch of people coming in the next few weeks actually that are going to help there. And I'm very confident that we'll get to that stackable
Yeah.
space very quickly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Good. So I'd love to talk, since you mentioned you've got some more people joining, into talking about leadership and culture. I think I read somewhere that one of the core values of Symbiotic is constructive conflict, which I love. But as you scale the team this year, how do you hire for that? Like, how do you look for someone that has that trait?
The one thing I always do, I think, is disagreeing with them, even if I actually agree with them. It doesn't really matter, right? I want to see how they react. And and listen, I do this when I say conflict constructively and positively. It means that conflict might not be the right word, right? I'm contradicting them. I'm not like I'm, I'm not screaming
Yeah.
at the microphone, but I'm just saying I'm just challenging them. And again, like even when they're right, and actually it's even more interesting to see when they are right and you are contradicting them. Like how does that work exactly?
Yeah.
So role play.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I'm going to include that when I talk to people, just purposely throwing a little bit of that in and see how they react. Because you're right. You want someone who can feel comfortable with that because that means they're going to give good feedback, which is super important.
Exactly.
And they're willing to accept feedback, right? Let's talk a little bit about this comes up all the time when you're selling a B2B SaaS, especially when we're in the economy that we have right now where every dollar is being scrutinized. And so when you're talking to investors or customers, how do you prove the ROI of better code security? Like, is it?
It's actually pretty simple. Like I've worked in cyber for forever, and I've always talked about ROI. We have to talk about ROI. In many cases, I don't want to say it was BS, but in many cases, it was somewhat unmeasurable things like your brand damage. Your in the case of code security and how we approach things, when we go to potential customers and they start trying the product, we go into boot camps and stuff like this. We take some time. It's not very complicated to compute the time they spent remediating stuff,
Mhm.
right? It's not about truly the ROI is not calculated in terms of a how your security is going to be improved with us, but more about a with us it takes that much time to fix something. And historically, and you verified it during the bootcamp, and historically, here's how much it costs you to fix any given vulnerability, right? And so the ROI is actually pretty immediate and it covers, like typically we say on average, we capture 6-7% of the actual ROI
Yeah.
as a license cost.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so we're getting close on time here. And One thing that I like to do at the end of each one of these is I call it the Foundry Molten moment. So this is kind of where it all boils down to. So let me ask this question. So let's fast forward 12 months. If Symbiotic misses its aggressive growth targets for next year, what do you think will be the structural reason why? Will it be that the tech didn't ship fast enough? Market just didn't hear the message clearly enough? Couldn't hire fast enough? What do you think?
Interesting. I don't think none of those, in the sense that if we don't hire fast enough, like that would definitely impact the results, but that wouldn't, like, we didn't miss our targets. One thing might be how early are we versus the market,
Mm.
right? So typically, like I said, we're really focused on securing that new AI powered development engine,
Yep.
right? AIs, whatever we say, like AIs are not ready yet for purely agentic development workflows, where the developers is not typing anymore. Well, they're typing, they're prompting,
Optic. Yep.
and then they have a huge role and a huge responsibility in terms of reviewing and approving, but they're not coding per se, right?
Yep.
If that is true, we are on a great path. If we are like 5 years away from this, then we are too
Too
early,
early. Yeah.
right? So if there was one thing that'd be this, but I have like I'm a tech enthusiast like you are, and I'm a big believer in AI. So I think our bet is fairly safe.
I would agree with you, Jerome. I think you're probably right on track with timing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Glad to hear.
Well, Jerome, this has been super fascinating. Where can people go to find Symbiotic and can they try the tool out?
Yeah, absolutely. On our website, ask for a demo, just fill in the form. You can see it. You can go on YouTube. We have some videos as well. In action is way better because we have a very high velocity. In 1 week, we'll have more
Yeah.
features and more cool stuff. And so the videos are kind of like not a good display of this. So yeah, come to us on the website, book a demo, and we'll make sure it's worth your time.
Thanks, Jerome.
Thank you, Matt.